2 million years ago, in the cradle of humanity, our ancestors found a home. They were the handyman. Their hands were their greatest gift. A mind that could see a weapon, a tool, in a simple stone. With these simple tools, they unlocked the bounty of the earth, their intelligence giving them a crucial edge. The leader stood watch, his mind a map of their territory, of its dangers and its opportunities.
They were not yet the world's greatest hunters, but they were its most intelligent opportunists.
They followed the signs, not to a fight, but to the spoils. The leavings of greater predators were their prize. Their stone tools gave them access to what others left behind, the rich marrow within the bone, the tough meat on the hide. They returned not just with food, but with a victory for intellect over brute strength. They had outsmarted the competition. Around the safety of the fire, the clan shared its bounty, their social bonds the foundation of their success. They knew the dangers of their world. They understood its rules. Their home was a fortress, and their life was secure. For the handyman, each day began with a ritual, the rekindling of the fire, the heart of their community. Knowledge was their most vital tool, passed carefully from one generation to the next, hand to hand. The river was their lifeline, a source of water, and a boundary for their safe and understood world.
But beyond their valley, the world was in turmoil. Territories were not given, but won, in brutal contests of strength.
A battle lost, a territory surrendered. The vanquished cat was now in exile, a dangerous ghost in search of a new home.
In their small, protected valley, life continued, a bubble of peace in a world of constant, violent change.
The exiled hunter roamed, driven by pain and instinct. A king without a kingdom, searching for a new domain.
They knew how to manage the familiar dangers. The lone scavenger, the small predator. These were the known rules.
Their hands, capable of both brute force and delicate skill, were the key to their dominance in this small world. And then, its long journey brought it to a new valley, a new land of opportunity, a new world to conquer. The new king had found its kingdom, a valley teeming with life, ripe for the taking. A predator born of silent shadow, its senses honed to the rhythms of life and death on the ancient savanna.
The fangs of extinction. A single, devastating strike, delivered with precision and overwhelming power.
Unaware of the new hunter, the clan went about their daily lees, their senses always attuned to opportunity.
A new signal. A different kind of death. One not yet understood, but demanding absolute caution.
A fresh kill. But the marks are alien, unlike any predator they knew. This was a new hunter. The bite marks told a terrifying story. Not the tearing of a lion, but the precise, surgical strike of colossal fangs.
A new kind of terror had arrived in their valley. A hunter of unimaginable power, whose presence changed everything.
No time for leisure. They took what they could, their instincts screaming of a danger that still lurked unseen. They returned to their home, unknowingly watched. The giant saber-toothed panther had finally seen its new neighbors. A new shadow had fallen over their home. The unknown hunter had changed the very air they breathed. Their movements became cautious. Their patterns shifted. The valley was still theirs, but a new power had entered the game. Even a moment of innocent distraction could be fatal. The rules of survival in their valley had abruptly changed. The saber-toothed phantom was not just hunting, it was claiming, marking its territory with scent and claw.
The silent message was clear. This was a land now claimed by a power greater than their own.
Their vital lifeline, the river, was now a dangerous threshold. Every drop of water came with a risk. It hunted with terrifying efficiency, taking what it pleased, dragging its bounty deep into the shadows.
Their resources were shrinking. The giant cat was a silent fence, pushing them further into hunger.
The night brought a new, chilling sound. A declaration of dominance, close enough to shake the very walls of their home. Their safe valley was no longer their own. The giant saber-toothed panther was not just a threat, but a new, unwelcome ruler.
The night's growl lingered long after the sound, poisoning the morsing light with a new and potent fear.
Even the simplest tasks were now fraught with peril. Every shadow, a potential ambush. Every sound, a potential threat.
In this new world, every shadow could hold a monster, and a single, careless step was a death sentence. The panther was not a creature of blind rage. It was a cold, calculating hunter, and this was its game.
To run was to die.
The days became a prison of sunlight, trapped in their own home, watching their precious resources dwindle.
The cat grew bolder, parading past their home in broad daylight. A clear, unspoken declaration of its rule.
It was a display of utter contempt, a psychological blow that left the clan feeling like prisoners in their own fortress.
It claimed not just the hunting grounds, but their very watchtowers, their places of power. The valley was now its throne. The roles were now reversed. The watchers had become the watched, and their world was shrinking by the hour.
The panther's rule was a slow siege of starvation. To remain in the cave was to accept a quiet death.
To remain in the cave was to die. They had to risk the panther's wrath for a single, desperate meal.
They moved not as gatherers, but as warriors, a small phalanx of fire against the shadows of their own valley. From its throne of stone, the panther saw the challenge, a brazen intrusion into its claimed territory. With a single, fluid leap, it cut off their retreat. The Cold War had just turned hot. The fire was their only shield, a flickering wall against the panther's patient, calculating fury.
A single moment of weakness, a faltering flame, and the panther struck, its speed.
It was not a battle of equals. Raw, crushing power met fragile bone. The fight was over in an instant. But the clan did not break. In the face of certain death, they met the panther's attack with a unified wall of fire and fury.
Gained and surprised by their ferocity, the panther retreated. The hominids had saved their own, but the cost was grave.
They dragged their wounded kinsman from the field of battle, their brief victory already tasting of bitter ash.
He was alive, but the panther's power was evident. A single blow had crushed him, a terrifying display of its strength.
They tended to his wounds, their hearts filled not with triumph, but with a new and more profound terror.
The attack had changed everything. This was no longer a dispute over territory. It was now a war. The fire had caused not fear, but pain. And pain had turned the intelligent hunter into a vengeful enemy. The panther did not retreat. It lay down at their door, a silent, menacing guard at the gate of their prison.
It began its psychological war, its growl a constant promise of the death that waited just outside their walls.
The new day brought no escape. The sun illuminated their prison, and the patient guard at its gate.
Against such power, spears were useless. Against such patience, waiting was suicide. A new weapon was needed.
The standoff was absolute. A battle of endurance between a starving clan and a patient, vengeful king. A day passed, then another. The siege was a slow, agonizing tightening of a noose made of hunger and fear. The panther played a cruel game, its sounds a constant, nerve-shattering reminder of the power that waited outside.
But the leader did not just see a monster. He saw a creature of habit.
He watched, and he learned.
He realized their spears were useless. They needed a different kind of weapon, not of sharpness, but of weight. He looked at the cliffs not as a barrier, but as a weapon. The mountain itself could be their spear. The plan was audacious. They would use the high ground to turn the panther's own siege against it.
They agreed. To die in a cage was no choice at all. To fight, however desperate, was to live.
Quietly, they gathered their ammunition. Each stone, a seed of defiance. Each rock, a prayer for deliverance. The wounded hunter watched, a silent, pained witness to the desperate battle his own injury had inspired. Under the cover of darkness, they began their ascent. A secret climb towards a final, desperate confrontation. They climbed into the guts of the mountain, a silent, desperate ascent towards a final, terrible gamble. Every foot they climbed was a battle against gravity, their weapons now a terrible, heavy burden.
A single, careless sound. A whisper of falling stone, loud as a thunderclap in the silent, deadly night.
The beast heard, but did not understand. Its focus was on the cave below, not the heavens above.
They reached the summit. A desolate, windswept stage for their final, desperate act of defiance.
They built their arsenal of gravity, each stone a silent prayer, each rock a potential thunderbolt.
For the first time, they looked down on their tormentor. For the first time, they held the power.
And below, the clan waited in silence, their fate now in the hands of the brave few on the cliffs above.
The moment was at hand. The culmination of their fear, their ingenuity, and their rage was about to be unleashed. The signal was given, a silent drop of a hand to unleash a storm of stone from the heavens. And so, the assault began, not with a roar, but with a silent, deadly cascade of stone.
A new sound in the valley. Not a threat from the land, but a mystery from above, confusing the patient predator. Then, the true blow. A thunderbolt from the sky, a direct assault on the unsuspecting king.
They unleashed the mountain's wrath, a barrage of stone and fury, targeting the beast that had held them captive.
The panther danced with death, trapped in a storm of falling stone, its strength useless against an enemy it could not see.
A blow landed. The mountain had struck, and the king of the valley finally felt the bite of its cunning foe. They followed the blow with a blinding, infuriating storm of dirt and pebbles, turning the air itself into a weapon. It was too much. The cunning, the pain, the unseen enemy. The panther retreated, its dominance shattered.
Then, silence. And the clan knew. The siege was broken.
They had used their wits, and the very mountain itself, to cast down a king. Their home was safe once more.
They returned, weary but victorious.
With the panther driven back, a new wave of healing could begin. Hope, the first medicine. The sun felt different. The air tasted sweeter. The ghost of fear still lingered, but it was receding.
Proof of their victor. The panther had been wounded, its arrogance shattered by the cunning of the small.
The king was wounded, its pride bruised, its fierce gaze now laced with caution and simmering resentment.
The tables had turned. The silent watch now roared their defiance, claiming their valley once more.
Defeated and injured, the great cat yielded, for now. Its retreat was a grudging acknowledgement of a new force. Their valley was theirs again. The river ran free, the foraging grounds open.
The panther was still there, a shadow on the fringes, a powerful enemy, simply pushed to the edges of their world.
They had not eliminated the threat, but they had controlled it. A precarious peace, forged in cunning and fire. Peace had returned, but innocence was gone forever. Every venture out was now a calculated, military patrol. The panther had learned its lesson. Fire and numbers were a threat. It now chose a new strategy, silence and stealth. The signs were more subtle now. Not a roar of dominance, but the quiet, chilling whisper of a ghost in the grass. But a moment's distraction, a single step too far, was all the ghost needed for an opportunity. The panther, having learned from its defeat, now sought to isolate the weak, to strike from the shadows.
But the clan's new discipline was its shield. A simple call to order, a life unknowingly saved.
The opportunity vanished. The panther, a master of patience, simply retreated, to wait for the next mistake.
They returned safe, but the leader knew their safety was an illusion, a fragile thing dependent on luck. He realized a passive defense was not enough. They could not just hold the line, they had to push it back. This valley was not big enough for two kings. One of them would have to be driven out, forever.
He knew they could not live as prisoners. The time for hiding was over. The time for fighting had come.
His plan was radical. Not to kill the beast, but to burn it out. To make the valley a hell the panther could not endure.
They agreed. A wave of desperate courage washed over them. They would be prisoners no longer. The clan became a single, purposeful machine, every hand working towards the coming confrontation. They crafted an arsenal not of stone, but of fire, each torch a spear of light to be wielded against the darkness. They armed themselves not just with fire, but with sound, a jarring, unnatural noise to shatter the predator's focus.
The wounded hunter, his body scarred but his spirit unbroken, would not be left behind. This was his fight.
As dusk fell, they gathered their fire. A small clan, transformed into an army of light. They emerged from their cave not as prey, but as a cleansing fire, a single, unified force of defiance. Ansa and Huaco, the panther watched, confused. The small, fearful creatures had become something new. They marched into the night, their collective will transforming fire from a tool of comfort to a weapon of war. And with every step, a cacophony of stone on stone, shattering the night and the panther's predatory peace.
The panther's world was being invaded, not by a stronger predator, but by a baffling, relentless force of light and sound.
They cleansed their valley, systematically pushing back the shadows, reclaiming every inch of their stolen land. Forced from its lair, the great hunter was becoming the hunted, its stealth shattered by the unrelenting assault. Even the valley's natural inhabitants fled, as the primal order of their world was violently upended.
Its roar of warning was met by a chorus of defiance. The great cat's solitary power was no match for their united voice. Their cunning extended beyond brute force. They sought to not just harass, but to shepherd the beast from their home. The walls of fire closed in. The cunning predator was caught in a trap of human design, its options dwindling. The tables had turned completely. The hunter was now cornered, facing an enemy it could not defeat with fangs or claw. Cornered, the great panther roared its defiance, but its power was met by a wall of fire and the relentless march of human will. They attacked not with spears, but with harassment, irritation, and the sheer audacity of their numbers.
Blind. Its senses, once its greatest weapon, were now overwhelmed. Blinded, confused.
They sensed its confusion and pressed their advantage, their combined voices a terrifying roar of triumph. With a last, desperate burst of fury, it lunged, seeking to break the human wall and reclaim its freedom. But they held the line. Fire and sound, two primal fears, converged on the enraged beast. Its last, desperate gambit failed. The fire burned, the noise deafened. The great cat was...
It had faced a new kind of enemy, one it could not intimidate, could not outwit, and could not defeat. The valley fell silent. The king was gone. And in that silence, a new sense of freedom bloomed. Their home, their valley, was theirs once more, reclaimed not by might. The fire, once a weapon, now faded. The battle was won, and the hard-won peace began to settle over them.
Embrace and relief. The cost was high, but the reward was the beating heart of their community, safe once more.
The sun rose on a new day, in a valley cleansed of fear. Their home had